Hey there, everybody. Welcome back with the Plat. Purplatypus is the name, and welcome to another Unicorn Overlord video. Today, I am in true Zenoiran difficulty here. You can see I am not that far, but that is why we are talking about early game teams today. I'm going to show you my 3 favorite early game teams for basically getting through this difficulty. This, of course, will also help you in the normal, any other difficulty, as these teams I think are very strong just in general. But yeah, just kind of wanted to go over it, kind of what my experience is from here. Also on my playthrough, I'm not using the Feather Knight or any mounted units or Joseph, but Joseph is very powerful and you could use him as well. But he's not going to be in any of my 3 teams, but just assume that he is very good. Now, really quick, before we jump into it, boom! Thank you to the members and the supporters. I greatly appreciate it. If you want to support the Plat, get a couple benefits as well, go ahead and click down below, become a member, throw Plat a couple bucks, get a couple things in return, win-win. Well, I guess, almost. I win the most, though. That's what's most important. Anyway, let's jump into it. So why are we looking at the world map? No reason. Let's go into the unit formation here. So here are the teams that I want to highlight today. First, there's 2 that I think are a little bit more exciting. We're going to go over the boring one first, okay? The boring one here first, but I do think it's actually very good and important, is going to be a full squad of hunters. Now, what's important is it doesn't really matter what these hunters' attacks are, right? You just need to have one, like, quote-unquote main hunter, right? A double offensive, and then whoever's going to be the leader, you just have them have the highest damage shield or attack that you can. Now, I happen to be using this character in this bow in a different build, otherwise I could go here, but this is not for fighting. All right, this build is not designed to be doing combat almost ever. They are purely to follow you and help you reroll combat RNG. I have another video that I did on exactly why I think these characters are OP, but on top of rerolling combat RNG, they will help you just deal more damage. Once they get into a tower, suddenly all of your combats have a chance to both reroll RNG, while also sometimes that RNG change and increase damage is just huge. It'll also help you get damage in on your other teams that are a little less focused on damage dealing. It'll get you into the back line. That way, if you're doing multiple encounters, over the course of multiple encounters, these guys can actually hit the back line. So it's a little boring. It's not the most exciting of the teams, but I really do think that in the early game on True Zenoiran, this has been a godsend for a lot of my teams, where I've really had to kind of maneuver around to get a little bit of extra damage. Just having this character kind of follow behind and keep garrisoning on things so they can help without using all their stamina, or even if they do, they need to rest really quick. That's not the biggest deal, but very important, very good. I love range assist. I love rerolling my combat RNG, especially because I like using thieves, and this lets you basically make sure your thieves don't get hit because you get to reroll their evasion in the early game. So how will it scale into the late game? Not sure yet. The reason we're using 3 here is because the ranged assist damage will scale based on, I saw it on Reddit. It seems to scale based on the number of hunters. Basically, if you have 1 hunter, it'll do a certain amount of damage versus 2 versus 3. It'll basically increase the potency of the damage. And also, the damage is based off the attack of the leader, and then the potency is based on the number of similar units. So having 3 is actually going to increase the damage. And because they're not attacking, I don't actually want them to have my other units that I want to be in combat. I want them to kind of do exactly this. So let's do our second team here, which is a more interesting. So there's kind of 3 teams here, right? I have a utility team, a general good purpose team, and basically a combo team. So this is the utility team. Now we have the generally good team here. So Elaine is pretty much the best early game unit, one of the best units in the entire game. You should always be using Elaine. Insanely powerful. So, but what is this team doing? This team isn't doing anything specifically insane. They're just very strong in general. So the main idea here is Elaine is going to tank everything. He will use Noble Guard if he needs to, or if you're fighting horses. Cavalry Guard is so good on Elaine in the early game because he's not on a horse. He's just a foot soldier. He takes double damage from cavalry. This will make him get a guaranteed heavy guard, and he gets the PP back. So that is huge value. Very, very good to keep Elaine alive. And then you don't need to worry about healing him. He keeps himself healed at max HP, basically with his lean edge. As long as you have it set up so he uses it at the right time, you might change these gambits a little bit over the course of the combat. But I actually don't think you need Luminous Cover. Noble Guard will be if they're not cavalry, and you could even have it wait until your HP is lower if you want. I don't really care about that. If you use it once, your HP is permanently increased. That's good, but versus cavalry, you got the guard here on the shield here. I'm using a Templar sword just for an extra guard rate, a little bit of extra defense. Bronze Bangle, this extra defense. He's here to tank. He already does pretty decent damage, but it's not his main thing. So most of our damage is going to be coming from our sellsword. Now, I do have the Kingsblade. I've done a couple videos featuring this weapon. It is incredibly powerful, especially in the early game. Was extra good on the sellsword. One, because it's the highest physical damage weapon, but two, it also gives you accuracy, which is actually important in the early game. And so it's very good on the sellsword. I also have blue spectacles on her because she has pretty bad accuracy, and most of our damage is going to be coming from the following slash. The following slash, is after a lane gets attacked, they are going to follow up and just start attacking. And when they're not doing following slash, they are going to be killing things with killing chain, or just wiping them out with heavy slash if it's something that's maybe a little bit stronger. But you could turn this off and just keep killing chain on, and they'll just sit there and they'll wait till something's about to die, and then they'll come in, they'll kill it, and then they can kill again and kill again. But heavy slash is also 50% stronger, sometimes really good to just use. Very powerful character, does a lot of damage, especially with that Kingsblade sword. Now, other than that, we basically have our armor killer, but also just strong unit killer. Especially in the early game, wizards are so strong. Being able to destroy armored units is very good. But beyond that, the fire debuff that they do, the burn debuff, it does 20 damage per stack. All right, later in the game, it's still good, it's still important, but right now, if you look at my HP, it's 40 HP, 40 HP. Enemies will have even less if they're a lower level, 18, 26. Like, even if you hit something and it does 1 damage, the 20 burn damage is a huge amount, and it activates before they take their action. So they'll go to take an action, but before they do, it'll deal them 20 damage, and frequently, they just die. Magic counter isn't particularly good on this one yet. You'd want to get something like Magic Pursuit, probably. I'd probably even use, like, you could just use this staff here to do the fire burst, do more damage at the end of combat. I'd probably just do that. I had it on a different character for a different reason, but for the sake of this video, this is a very good thing you're going to want to do. And you could even do prioritize burn, you know, and if no one's burned, then do generic. Either way, it's good. So this is really good at covering things that the sellsword's not good at, while also it's good at just, the burn is very powerful. It's very good. And the wizard already does passively high damage, but even if they're really, really resistant to magic, he could still do good damage through the burn. And fire burst is insanely good. And now finally we have the cleric here. This is a character that I wish I didn't have to have on the team, but it is good. I am using the hollowed mace here. That gives you, at the start of battle, grants a row of allies HP regeneration. I think this is pretty important. The main reason this is here is because when you're going through a lot of maps, there are going to be ranged assists and there's going to be magic assists. Now, this is basically, Elaine almost never dies. He's just strong, he's tanky, he's got good guards, he's got self-healing. But eventually, the chip damage of all these assists are going to kill your back row. That is why I have the cleric, is that basically you could just keep the back row going so they don't just die to range assists. Because I had a thing where it's like my team would always one-shot the enemy team. I had this with a different damage dealer, like a hunter or something that does like a row attack, and it was great doing damage. But the second you put it in a real like map situation where they're attacking with range assists, you just get chipped down, and then after 4 or 5 encounters, you're just dead. Even Elaine's alive doing no damage. So having some sort of sustain makes this team very good, in my opinion. And I think a lot of your teams are going to want some sort of sustain, depending on what it is. But this is going to be my team that's kind of tanking a lot of the range assists are trying to. So that is the second team. They're just a general all-purpose good and I think powerful team in the early game. They kind of cover all your bases. They can kind of go anywhere, fight anything, and do very, very well. Now, finally, my quote-unquote combo team. Now, this is based on the interaction, basically. It's just super good, honestly. The Frost Brand Tome. If you don't know where to get this or you don't remember, if you're going to come on down as soon as you unlock the witch, right, you're going to go to the hamlet, which is her hometown. You're going to come to this building right here, behind the town, in this. This is basically her home, and she's going to be like, hey, I forgot something upstairs. Let me go grab it. She brings you back the Frost Brand Tome. Very, very powerful. It activates before an ally's physical attack active, add magic damage, and freeze to an ally's next attack. So this is so powerful early game because enemies don't have any interaction with this at all. No one has freeze immunity. No one has basically even like refresh, removed, dispel. There's basically no interaction. Once they're frozen, it's done, you know? And even once they do have the ability to interact with it, you could usually work around it pretty easily. So the only bad thing about this is you need to get a Lapis pendant early game to give it to your character. That way she can actually use it. But then you really, really want to pair this with a hunter in the early game. Different stages of the game, you'll want to use different characters. Once you get the elf sisters, immediately replace this hunter with an elf sister, because the elf sister does this. I mean, she has to be the right level. But the main thing we're looking for here is we want things that target multiple enemies, right? This attacks 2 enemies, and you could get it on the Berserker, but what's really good about this is that it is ranged, so you could target anything you want whenever you want, right? So the Gladiator can do a wide attack, but his accuracy is kind of low early game, and even then, it's like besides him missing a lot, his initiative is low. And he just kind of does a lot of damage, and freezing enemies doesn't usually matter that much, for at least for my situation, because he seems to just kill shit. But this is really good. So if you're going first, you're going to use a dual shot, and you are going to freeze 2 targets. And then those 2 targets are frozen. I would probably target, like, not frozen, highest initiative, right? Something like this. You go with the highest initiative, not frozen. So you get to go, and you're freezing the 2 highest initiative characters. Then your Ice Bolt character is going to be prioritized back row, not frozen, so she's gonna freeze another character, and then your third witch is gonna freeze another character. So you're freezing 1, 2, 3, 4 characters, and basically they'll never get a chance to attack. You're gonna do free damage, and they're never gonna get to attack. This isn't as good at one rounding as other builds can be. However, against like most of the bosses that are in their little towers, you could just attack them for free and never have to worry about getting counterattacked or having anything go against you, because you just freeze them all before they get a chance to go, and then they're done. You don't break their freeze. You let them stay frozen at the end of combat, so they just never get an action. You just kill them in that way over 3 or 4 fights, probably even 2 fights. Honestly, the damage is pretty good. But the shaman is here. I think they're pretty important in the early game. They are here for their passive curse. This lowers the initiative of enemies. The lower PP is something which is like the namesake of it, but really we're doing this for the lower initiative. There is very, very little initiative manipulation in the early game. So if you're having trouble in the early game, a shaman is the best way to get the initiative basically messing around. So you go to the row with the most combatants, and you could also even go highest initiative. You could change it however you want for the specific fight, but this will slow them down by 10, giving your characters with slower speeds based on their level. Basically, you're going to give them a chance to actually just go first. So you have to go first for the freeze effect to be really, really good. You could still survive and tank an attack for sure. Put your highest HP, put the hunter maybe up front, something like that. But then you're slowing them. They lose some PP, which is fine, and then you freeze them, and it's done. I am using the Sorceress connection. I do think it is good because it is going to activate on... It's kind of interesting, this level 10. Oh, it's because she's a go-getter. I had her as a go-getter. But basically, she doesn't... The Familiar's Choker is pretty good because the Shaman doesn't need their magic attack for literally anything, and then you just get negative 50 magic attack and you give it to someone else. So it's pretty good, especially if you don't need to freeze something, because let's say they have less than 4 targets or you don't need to freeze them all. You can instead do like a magic missile, and the magic missile will get the Sorceress connection perk, and you'll get a bunch of magic attack. It's 50% of your base, right? So you get an extra 10 magic attack over 2 targets. Like, that's really good. So there's a little bit of flexibility in here and its ability to kill, but it's also mostly a control, right? This is really, really good against the early game bosses, where as long as you can go faster than them, it doesn't matter how strong they are, what their passives are, what their attacks are, if they can one-shot characters with True Strike stuff, you just freeze them. And then you just freeze them, then you freeze them, you rest, you freeze them, they're dead. Very powerful. The General's Bow I'm mostly using because it's just the highest attack. I understand it as aerial shift is mistranslated. But again, this is very early in the game, as you can tell, right? I'm used to my I feel almost embarrassed because I'm used to my end game account. So this kind of looks embarrassing, but this is how I've been getting through early True Zenoiran. These 3 teams right here have been primarily what I've been doing. Very powerful at defeating the teams that seem like, or pushing content that you feel like you shouldn't quite be able to get yet, because this team could just beat teams that it's weaker than because it could CC them out of existence. This team is a little more fair, but definitely more powerful and just kind of good in all situations. It's not reliant on freezing the enemy. And this team is just good at increasing damage, but mostly re-rolling that combat RNG. If you wanted to look at other things here, you could change, potentially, you could change the sellsword here with a knight. I think that is reasonable because the knight is really good at one-shotting things and they keep going. I like the immediateness of the following slash. In the first round, you're going to get basically 5 attacks, right? If they attack a lane 4 times and then you attack once with a killing chain or heavy slash, she's basically getting 5 attacks in 1 round, which is very powerful, and she could use the super powerful sword. I think it makes her stronger than a knight in the early game, but obviously the knight is got basically infinite AP, double damage. There's a million reasons why the knight's one of the best classes in the game. Another thing I've been having a really good time with, I've actually been doing a double thief gladiator build. This is more like a honorable mention. I don't think it's quite as powerful as the others, but I do think it's pretty good. One thief in my playthrough is the best leader you can get because I am not using any mounted units. So they are the fastest leader that also has quick rest, which is a very powerful leader effect in general. So they're just kind of good at everything. But the thing I like about double thief and gladiator is gladiator does a ton of damage, and toxic throw kind of gives you a guaranteed set amount of damage. Sometimes passive seal is going to be better, but honestly, toxic throw is pretty good because as long as you go first when you're a thief, you probably do. Toxic throw is giving you a bare minimum of damage no matter what you're going up against. That's pretty decent, honestly. And so you're eventually going to fight some things that are really good at killing thieves, and you can kind of just like move these guys back and move the gladiator up, or do some combination. They're all good in the front line and still reasonable in the back line. So this kind of gives you the maneuverability to kind of do what you want. There are some things like a hunter, the gladiator is great at fighting the hunters, but also the wide smash is a lot of damage. If he's in the back row and his turn comes around, he's got a 200 potency attack right out the gate, right? Just a 200 potency. Yes, the hit rate is low. Buy some spectacles for him, right? He doesn't hit everything all the time, but he hits really hard. So I've had good luck with this team too. I found it's pretty powerful, but that's more of an honorable mention, less like essential. But this is what I've been doing in early True Zenoiran. So let me know what you guys have been doing, and what teams you think are super powerful. Obviously, you can get the Feather Knight. I haven't got them yet. I'll get them soon, but it's a very, very powerful character. You can throw them in basically any team comp. They're going to be one of the best things of the game. Joseph is also really good. You could easily take out this cleric here, probably, and just put in something like Joseph. Let's take a look at Joseph here. Let's go with Order Joined. I think he's the 3rd character, the 4th character. So, I mean, you can see he's just going to basically make everyone almost impossible to die, right? He's even got heal, so you could even just have him do double heal in the back row. So, and he makes it harder to kill your front row, and Pursuit will even let him do a little bit of damage. So you could probably remove this bishop here with a Joseph, which I would probably do, because then you could sometimes have a horsey boy. It's just not in my playthrough. But I've rambled on long enough, guys. That's going to be everything for today's video. Thank you very much. I know the game's been out for a long time, and it's weird to do a video about the early game on True Zenoiran, but honestly, I think maybe a lot of people are finally beating the game and getting to their True Zenoiran, but maybe I'm just a little late to the party, I'll be honest. I've been playing some other things while I'm waiting for my next big game to come out, but I'm also not done with this one. I'm still having a lot of fun with it. Want to keep making videos for it. So anyway, that's all for today. Much love for Platypus. Is for Platypus. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.